Hey everyone, this is John Trent. You're listening to the Comic Vigilante, brought to you by BountyIntoComics.com. I'm your host. I'm here with special guest Mike Barron. You might know him as the creator of The Badger. He's also had epic runs on The Punisher. And we're going to talk about his upcoming comic Offworlder, which he's currently crowdfunding on IndieGoGo. So let's just kind of get right to the meat of it, Mike. What is Offworlder all about?
It's Ben Henderson's idea. He asked me to write it. Hang on a sec. I'm going to read you the blurb. Where is it? Oh, I have to open the blurb. I'm sorry for this dead time. I know that it's killing radio. Here we go. All right. 7th century Scotland. Henry Gunn leads his clan in a ferocious battle with Viking invaders. But with victory in sight, he is ripped from space and time by an alien race. The Anunnaki seek a champion to stop another alien race from conquering all known space. Aided by the Egyptian goddess Sarah, Gunn undergoes a hideous transformation, becoming something more than human, able to move through time and space at will, yet unable to save his wife and child. The fate of civilization rests on the shoulders of a troubled demigod. In the tradition of The Stars, My Destination, and The Silver Surfer, Offworlder is a star-spanning science fiction saga that will keep you riveted from first page to last.
So what really intrigues me is that there's like this mystery about he can't save his wife and daughter. Why can't he save his wife and daughter? Is that because he's taken from these people? But isn't he?
Yeah.
Is there some limits to his abilities to travel space and time that he can't save them?
We're gonna find those limits, because when you give a character unlimited power, he becomes boring very quickly. But you're right. The reason he can't save his wife and child is because they pluck him out of his home just at the moment that the Vikings are about to overrun the village. And he's like, no. But it's too late, and they take him to a place that awes him. It would be like taking a 6th century person or an Amerindian and setting them down in modern Tokyo or something. They would be overwhelmed and humbled, and aware that they were in a society that, if it was not superior, at least was technologically overwhelming. James Gunn is shocked by these events. Of course, he's furious and wants to return to his family, but he's also in awe of these creatures who seem omnipotent to him.
Yeah, so it reminds me a lot of Valiant's Exo Man of War, where he's kind of done the same thing, where they're not looking for a champion; they kind of enslave him instead, and he has to become the champion. Was there any influence from that, or did you look more, like, where did you find influence for the story? What did you look at?
I looked, first of all, at Ben's outline, and this is a story that Ben's been dragging around for 20 years. And then, because it involved the Egyptian princess, I read the biography of Cleopatra, and that gave me a lot of ideas to propel the story forward. I'm not familiar with Exo Man of War. In fact, I don't read that many comics these days. I try to be original. I know that there's nothing new under the sun, but with that understanding, there's way to present ideas in a fresh and exciting manner. They say there are only 7 plots in fiction, which may be true. And one of them is the revenge plot, which we're all familiar with, and we all love revenge stories. But it shows that it's true. There are basic dramatic sequences and events that propel most stories forward. They depend on conflict. So I try to find the conflict within the story and within the characters of the protagonists.
Well, when you're like writing a protagonist, what are the kind of key things you look for in that conflict?
The reader has to have someone with whom he can identify and root for. These are not clear-cut battles between good and evil. There are always shades of gray, but one side is better than the other. The trick is to portray your protagonist in a sympathetic and credible and exciting manner. And I try to do that by showing, not telling, through his actions. And James Gunn is a man of action, and there's a lot of action in the comic, but it's not mindless action. It all has a purpose in propelling the story forward. Likewise, the fight sequences are highly choreographed. I never give away a fight sequence. The reader wants to see what's actually happening, who's holding the axe in what hand, and how did they get behind that other guy. You have to let the action unfold in a rational but exciting manner. And that means holding your camera still and letting the characters do the moving.
So as a writer, how detailed are the scripts that you're giving to your artist when you're dealing with like these action scenes? Is it like scene by scene, like very specific?
It's panel by panel. I'll send you the script.
So, I mean, I know I've seen some of the action scenes that you scripted in what is it called? It's in
Badger.
Yeah, no, not Badger. It was
Cue Ball.
It was Cue Ball. That's it. And I mean, the martial arts in there were just absolutely fantastic.
Well, thank you. They could have been better, and they will be.
Oh, I really enjoyed the fight sequences and how you were able, like, it flowed really well, and like you were saying, how how the character got from one scene to the next. Because I know a lot of the comics that I read now, it's kind of like, how did he get from that corner to the other corner? Like, how did that happen? That's something that you make sure that you take care of? How often, like, do you go over your own scripts and look for stuff like that?
Frequently. Wait till you see the next issue. Barry's just hitting his stride. It's going to knock you out. I think he's almost finished with issue number 3 by now. But in any case, my scripts are very detailed, but they're not voluminous. I mean, it's not like a 30-page script for a 24-page story. It's more like a 16 or 18-page script for a 24-page story. But that's because I convey a great deal of information in as few words as possible. But I go from panel to panel. Page 1, panel 1, exterior day, horizontal. A strip mall with a karate studio on one side, a liquor store on the other, in the middle of a pet hospital. There are 2 men standing in front of the pet hospital talking. One's an aging hippie with long hair with a skateboard under his arm, and the other's a man in a suit wearing glasses. There's a Corvette parked in the, stuff like that. And then I give you the dialogue and the captions.
Okay, yeah. So that's actually pretty detailed. I like that. That's interesting. So, tell me a little bit more about the characters. Who are these Anunnaki people?
They're a benevolent alien race, relatively. It's all relative here. But compared to the other guys, they're saints. And they have an advanced civilization, and they're on the decline. They've accomplished great things. They've created an empire. But now they're losing their fertility. They're not reproducing at a rate that's sustainable. And they recognize this. And they also see this other barbaric race, which is about to overtake the galaxy, an insatiable lust to destroy and rule. And the Anunnaki, being refined people of culture with a great history of art and literature and architecture, don't want it to be destroyed. And they recognize similar qualities on Earth. And the reason that they chose James Gunn is because millennia ago, an Anunnaki bugged out, went to Earth and impregnated an Earth woman, and now James Gunn is his like 12th ancestor. And so that makes him uniquely suited to protect the Earth because of the Anunnaki connection.
So the Anunnaki, that's kind of they're kind of like a mythological race in like the alien hunters, I guess. Did you look at that kind of research when you were looking at writing these characters, or are they kind of based off of Ben's script and your own ideas?
Ben's script and my own ideas, and I told our artist Jordy that they bore similarities to the typical alien you see in association with Area 51, the little guy with the big eyes. They also appeared in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The archetypal alien. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Big head, wispy little figures. But he went beyond that and created numerous body types, and they're much more realistic. And then some of them are quite muscular.
So how involved are you with the IndieGoGo campaign for Offworlder? Because there's a lot going on here.
Well, I'm on there pitching it on social media every day.
Well, were you part of like putting it together? Because I mean, there's Ravage #1 is available through it, and the crossover.
No, that was all Ben's deal with
Okay.
Chuck. I had nothing to do with Ravage. I came after Ravage.
Okay. So, as well as Offworlder, you're also working on a story called Shred Hustl. That's part of looks like it's an anthology that's being crowdfunded on KickStarter called Tear the Roof.
Yeah, the name of the book is Tear the Roof Off the Sucker.
Right.
And Shred Hustl is a secondary character in one of the stories, but Shred Hustl is a character I created in my biker novel, Sons of Privilege. He appears as a novel within a novel, a blaxploitation novel written by a black pulp writer in the 70s in the manner of Shaft or Hell Up in Harlem or any of the Donald Goines stories. Cotton Comes to Harlem, that type of thing. And there's a novel within Sons of Privilege. And Shred Hustl is the hero of that novel. And I just dig him so much that I wanted to do a series on him. In fact, I've written a couple of scripts, and I tried to get Chris Cross to join me. And Chris was all for it. We just couldn't find a publisher. He did a terrific illustration, which I'll send you later.
Okay. Is that something that you have trouble with, where you have like good script ideas, but finding people to publish them? Is that something you?
Yeah.
What do you think is the reason for that? Because it sounds like you have artists that have kind of done work on these projects. And
well, as I said, the comic industry is in free fall. They don't know whether to shit or go blind. Certainly Marvel and DC are not open to outside submissions, especially if they don't own it. And it's hard to find a sympathetic publisher, and I understand, because it's a great risk and it's quite an expense if you're going to pay artists and writers up front. And for a long time, while the market was expanding, there was room for all sorts of experimentation, but now the market is contracting, and small publishers can't afford to take a flyer on something where they might sink $40,000 or $50,000 into a 4 or 5 issue run, and that's just editorial costs, and not make their nut back, But I don't have the following to suck in money overnight.
Is that something that you're working on building? Is that following? And do you recommend that that's kind of what the future of the comics industry needs to do is really like build a following?
Well, I think any artist with their salt wants a following, and I'm always trying to increase mine, which is why I have a presence on social media. And I comment, I chat with my fans, I talk all over the earth. But I've never been good at promoting myself. All I want to do is create stories. Unfortunately, it becomes a necessity, especially when you're doing a Kickstarter or a self-generated project like this. So here I am.
Well, we're glad to have you here. So we have a question from the audience regarding Offworlder, and he thinks that the James Gunn, he wants to know if that's the director of Guardians of the Galaxy. Or
No, it's a good question. No, actually, James Gunn is Ben Henderson's great grandfather. On his mother's side, his name was Gunn. I don't know if it was James Gunn, but that's actually a Henderson family name, and that's where the name came from.
Oh, okay, that's really cool. I didn't know that. Are there a lot of other characters that have family ties to you or Ben?
No, that's the only one.
Okay.
The other characters are creations of our imagination. But aside from Ghana, I'm proudest of Sarah, the Egyptian princess. As reading that book on Cleopatra was a real eye opener, and gave me a lot of ideas.
So her name is Sarah, and that just kind of like this just popped in my head. What do you, when you think of characters' names, do they just kind of pop in your head, or do you do research to find like interesting names, or what do you do when you're looking for characters' names?
Sarah is Ben's creation. But
Okay.
as for myself, I do all those things that you said. Sometimes I'll just formulate a name that's never been heard before, and I'll use that in a novel. I'm doing that right now. Other times, when I hear a name that resonates, something unique, I'll write it down, and I may use it years later. I get a lot of names from Judge Judy. There's a there's a character in my Florida Man novel named Erica, AIRWRECKA, and that's from Judge Judy.
Okay, wow. Do you want? I mean, man, that's. I mean, that's probably a good source for like all interesting names. Yeah. So you mentioned Florida Man. I've seen like the cover images where he's like riding the gator, and that just looks so exciting and interesting. I just want to hop on the alligator with him. What is Florida Man all about?
Gary Duba's having a bad day. There's a snake in his toilet, a rabid raccoon in the yard, and his girl Crystal's in jail for getting naked at a Waffle Hut and licking the manager. So Gary sets off with his best friend Floyd to sell his prized Barry Bonds rookie card to raise the $500 for bail. But things get out of hand.
Okay, I mean, there's a lot going on there. That sounds almost very familiar to my wife's family's story. Is there any specific person that this is kind of like based off of? Did you like read a news story? Is it based off of all those Florida Man stories?
A lot of news stories, but my Florida Man, whose name is Gary Duba, is a unique creation. He's not based on anybody I've read about in the newspapers, but all those stories have found their way into the narrative. I'm talking about attempted sex with an alligator and getting into fistfights in the IHOP and all that stuff. It's all in there. But Gary's not what you think. He's a very sympathetic character. He's a little hot-headed, and he finds himself in a lot of scrapes and doesn't always deal with them in the best way, but he's got a good heart. And not only that, it's the funniest book ever written.
I don't doubt that.
I'll send you a chapter.
When do we when is that coming out?
Well, I don't know. Right now we're negotiating for the comic, and I can't discuss that, but keep your fingers crossed. I haven't finished the novel yet. When I do, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have a friend who's interested in publishing it. He's got a fair-sized publishing company, but there's no money. And you know, I've been writing these novels for 10 years, and I doubt if I've made $1,000 in royalties from all of them. I've never seen a royalty on any of my biker novels, and hopefully the new publisher will change that. But my feeling is that Florida Man is too good to just give away. If I could get an agent to read it, and I know how to approach an agent if I can find one, I think that agent could run with it and get me a decent deal.
So Florida Man's going to be a novel, and you're working on a comic as well.
The comic is all scripted.
Okay.
And Todd is busy illustrating the first issue.
Are they two separate stories, or is the comic based off of part of your novel?
Vice versa. The novel is based off the comic.
Okay.
What happened is I scripted the 5 issues, and each issue is so packed with stuff. It's not crowded. I mean, everything, it clicks, every panel snaps and pops. So all I can say. And when I was done, I had these 5 scripts, and I thought, holy shit, this is the outline of an epic novel. So I started writing it.
Cool. That's cool. I'm honestly really looking forward to that one. So we were chatting beforehand. You're also working on a Jawbreakers tie-in, and you're working on Desolation Wave. What can you tell me about that?
Desolation Wave is Richard Meyer's idea about an idyllic race that lives on an idyllic planet that's enslaved by a race of monsters who torture and humiliate them for 200 years and then die out, leaving everything to their slaves. And all the slaves now inherit the earth. They're wealthy beyond their wildest dreams, but they're so crushed by their experience that they've lost the will to live. And in fact, their leader talks them into a plan to wipe out all life everywhere in a nihilistic act, just to say, we've had it, we hate you, we're through with life. And that's the Desolation Wave that they threaten to unleash. And the story is about how the human spirit endures and overcomes and stops the Desolation Wave.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like sounds like taking an experience from like a cult and putting it on a massive scale almost.
You could say that.
Yeah. Where the cult leaders are all like when they decide to have everyone commit suicide. Yeah, wow. That sounds really intense. What was it like when you're writing something like intense like that? How do the emotions that you're writing or like the emotions that you're putting in the characters affect you, or do you kind of just keep that separate?
Well, I don't live and breathe these stories. A story is something you build. It's a work of art that you create. And I look at it from the outside, but I also know it works. And given the outline, I try to imagine the characters and put myself in their positions. And then I try to show the story as much as possible and use dialogue to illuminate character and occasionally to advance story. But when I do that, I always try to find original language. So I have to look within myself and be serious. It's not a jokey story. It's no room for puns and so forth. Although there are flashes of humor, because every great tragedy has to have a little humor in it. Even Schindler's List has a couple of jokes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a movie or TV show or read any kind of book that doesn't have some kind of humor. I think that's just part of human nature. There's always going to be that humor there. Sounds like Desolation Wave and Florida Man are almost like two drastically different things, where Florida Man has a lot of humor and comedy, where Desolation Wave is much more serious. Do you prefer writing one over the other?
Not really. I'm interested in story in and of itself, and I will find that everywhere. I love Florida Man, but I love the work I've done on Desolation Wave. A couple of years ago, I asked my wife Ann if she'd read one of my novels, and she said, "But there's nothing I can read of yours. It's too horrible. Write something I can read." So I wrote Disco, which is a novel about a boy who raises a mongrel pup to be world disc dog champion.
Did she read it?
Yeah, and she loved it. Everybody who's read it has loved it. It's a wholesome tale for the whole family.
Hi,
Oh, hi. It's a great book.
John Trent.
Hi, John. It's
Hi, how
a
you doing?
heartwarming, wonderful story for the whole family.
So we talked about Disco a little bit before, and it's about it's kind of like an amalgam of all the dogs you've ever owned.
Well, yes and no. Of course, I love my dogs, and anybody who's a dog owner wants to see their dog in a book. In fact, there are a bunch of companies that say, "See your dog in a book," and you just send them pictures, and they work it into a little narrative. But it was about that. But it was also an idea that I've been dragging around for 25 years. It just appealed to me. A classic underdog story. Kid comes from a broken home. He's moved to 3 different schools in 3 years. He's starting in at a new school. He's an outsider. And the dog makes things happen for him. And it gives him focus, And he pulls it. His grades get better. He gets a girlfriend.
And the dog is they do like this disco is kind of like a competition. Is
Oh,
that
it's a
correct?
real competition.
Right.
Yeah, the World Disc Dog Championship takes place every July 4th on the Mall in Washington, D.C. I think Purina sponsors one. There are several competing competitions, but they all involve dog agility and flying discs.
And the boy like it participates in that, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. And you can get that on Amazon. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, is there anything else that you're kind of working on that you've got in the works? Do you have any new your biker novels? Do you have any of those?
Well, let me just run through those. There are
Yeah.
6. There will be 6 by the end of the year. There are actually 7. The first is Biker, in which he gets involved in a dog fighting ring, which leads him to track down a baby that was stolen from its mother 18 years ago, which leads to the most horrific confrontation in the Badlands of Wyoming imaginable. And it's grim, Jim. But the second one, Sons of Privilege, is about the Smiley Face murders, which is a series of white college athletes found drowned after a night of drinking. And in each case, Smiley Face was written on a wall nearby. You can Google this. The FBI had a special task force on it for years. And in that, he gets involved in the Smiley Face murders and solves them. And that also includes the novel within the novel featuring Shred Hustle. The third one is Not Fade Away, and it's about how a woman living in a trailer says that a great singer, famous rocker who died in a club fire years ago, gave her this song. It's one of the most popular songs on the radio. You hear it every day. And now an insurance company is using it for a jingle, and she hasn't gotten a cent. She produces a letter that says, "Dear Marissa, I wrote this song for you. I give it to you with all blah, blah, blah." And he signs it. So it's about how Josh has to prove that that's real. And it sets him off on a trip that takes him to Hollywood. And the decadent lifestyles of the rich and famous, and eventually to a confrontation with a master killer in an abandoned automobile factory in Waukesha. The fourth one, Sons of Bitches, is about a woman who puts out a Muhammad comic and has to hire Josh to protect her. The fifth one, Buffalo Hump, is how Josh is hired to protect a charismatic Sioux blues musician at the opening of a new casino in South Dakota. People want to kill him because they don't agree with the casino. And the sixth one, Bloodline, is how Josh joins a paramilitary biker crew that runs guns for a living.
Which one's your favorite that you've written?
Well, I love them all, and the reason is, for 30 years I tried to write novels, and I'd look at it and I said, "This is crap," and I was not wrong. It was crap. It took me 30 years to learn how to write a novel at a tremendous personal cost. But when I got it, and now I'm very pleased with everything I write.
And you're working on a 7th one, is that correct?
It's done. It's called Bloodline. No, it's called Unfortunate Son.
Okay.
And it's about how Josh's worthless father comes to live with him, the father that abandoned him at a truck stop when he was 15.
So he goes on a lot of journeys. Is this all take like how old is he when it starts, and like are we traveling through like decades or?
No,
Okay.
I figure one adventure a year, maybe two. But he's like 30 when it starts.
Okay. So there's been some news that broke today. We actually had an inside source leaked a screenshot from this like secret Marvel Comics retailer group, and they were complaining that they were not going to hand out Marvel's Young Guns sketchbook, which is a sketchbook that Marvel shipped to retailers for free. And this person was saying that they were not, I think her name is Jill, was saying that they were not going to share their, hand out these sketchbooks because every single artist well, they claim that every single artist at part of Marvel's Young Guns were not cisgender and male. Do you think this is like a problem in the modern comics industry where you're already having there's already trouble selling comics and they're trying to cause even more trouble?
Well, the writers and the publishers' first obligation is to entertain. How would they choose those images? They would choose the images by looking at every image that passed in front of them and choosing the best and most exciting art. They wouldn't know who drew them, their race, gender, or preference. They would simply choose the best art. And that's how they should do it.
But do you think that's happening now, or do you think that is what's happening?
Well, I do see that certainly a number of Marvel books have been infected by politics. And once again, I say that the writer's first obligation is to entertain. If you entertain, if you tell a story that grabs the reader by the throat, you can sneak in your message if you have a message. But as Louis Mayer said, if you have a message, use Western Union.
That's funny. That's funny. So would you say that, do you ever put a message in any comics or novels that you read or that you write?
Well, Desolation Wave necessarily contains a message. And the message is that no man can be happy unless he believes in something greater than himself.
So that's not necessarily like a political message. So are you fine with kind of like having these like maybe like universal human messages rather than political messages?
Well, the comic's purpose is to entertain. That's what I set out to do. It has nothing to do with politics. Now, occasionally, one of my characters will reflect what I take to be his worldview. Josh Pratt is a born-again Christian. He doesn't go around preaching. He doesn't announce it, but it does come up from time to time, and he's not ashamed of it. Whether that's a message or not, I don't know. But that's about as well. And then, of course, as I said, Sons of Bitches about a woman who puts out a Muhammad comic. It's highly political, but none of it is preaching. It's all action and story.
You know? And that's kind of like you would say that's kind of the difference where you have there might be like political overtones, but it's part of the story, part of the action. It's not kind of like someone just talking, almost breaking the fourth wall at you.
Yeah, the reader doesn't like being lectured. Nobody does. And as I said, the writer's first obligation is to entertain. And there are ways to do that. It's a craft. It's an art. The second rule is to show, don't tell. And the third rule is to be original.
So I know we were talking earlier before the show about how you've kind of changed your movie consumption, and over the recent years, you said you used to go and watch movies all the time at the theaters, and now you're not. Why is that?
Well, I was looking over this past year. I haven't been really excited about too much. And I'm happy to wait 6 months and get the DVD from the library. That's where I've been getting a lot of my movies lately. That's where I got Green Book, which was outstanding. But I don't miss not seeing it in the theater. The home viewing experience is in some ways preferable because you don't have people yelling or smelling of popcorn. And I'm also at a place in my life where I prefer fiction that I can absolutely believe in. I can look at it and say, yeah, that's real. I believe that could happen. I was there. Like Lord of the Rings, that did it for me. So did Game of Thrones. But these superhero movies don't do it for me anymore. And I know they're wonderfully entertaining. They got great performances. They have humor, drama. But I just prefer more realistic dramas.
Were there any superhero movies in the past that did do it for you?
Winter Soldier.
Okay. And then I would arguably say that's probably one of the more realistic Marvel films. I would probably say it's the most realistic MCU film that they've put out. Would you, if they did more movies like that, would you be more interested if they did like more spy thrillers?
Well, I don't know about that. I see that they have Avengers, whatever it is, the latest one, down at the
Endgame.
library. Yeah, Endgame. And I'm tempted to pick it up, and I probably will. Yeah, and I'll probably watch it, and I'll probably enjoy it. But the movies that I look forward to are like Creed 2, The Equalizer 2, and Fences, Denzel Washington's Fences. I like him in anything he does.
Oh yeah, he's great. I love Denzel.
Did you see Fences?
I have not seen Fences, not
great
yet.
Drama, great drama.
I actually need to. Creed 2 is like on the list of movies that I still need to see because I haven't seen that yet. But I really like the first Creed. I bet you're looking forward to Are you looking forward to the next Rambo movie?
You bet.
Yeah. Did you see the trailer?
No, I haven't seen the trailer. I've just seen the images, but it just appeals to me. I know he'll do a great job.
Yeah, if the trailer looks really good. If you get a chance, you should check it out. So do you think that's something that Hollywood is kind of missing, or do you think that with these more kind of like realistic movies and settings, or do you think it's just that you enjoy your home experience better, and you're not really like there's no really draw to like get you to the theater because you can just watch it at home and have a better experience just a little later.
It's all those things. There's no question that Hollywood is suffering a positive imagination this year with all these failed reboots, Men in Black, Charlie's Angels. Again, don't they have
boy.
And the studios won't take a chance on gutsy little independent films like Taxi Drivers, like they did in the 70s, which was an explosion of great movies. And it's hard for independent companies to get going with an intriguing drama that's not an instant sell, that can't be reduced to 3 words like Nazi biker zombies.
I will say, well, speaking of Nazi biker zombies, I will say that's actually interesting that you say that, because I was going to comment that what I've seen, like tracking kind of what like the Hollywood films that have come out over the past couple of years, is what seems to be really resonating with audiences and highly profitable for Hollywood are these horror films. You're seeing like horror movies on extremely low production budgets compared to the superhero movies, and they're making almost half of what I would say the average MCU film makes on almost like 10% of the production budget.
Well, there's always a market for horror.
Well, do you think that's a way that like we're going to see like more of these like horror films, and that could like kind of bring back that lower budget 70s style movies that you were talking about, like Taxi Driver?
I hope so, but their Roger Corman is gone. We're trying to get one made right now, based on my novel Helmet Head, which is about Nazi biker zombies.
So, well, let's talk about that experience. How does that work? Trying to get someone to adapt your novel.
I got the adaptation. Ian Fisher wants to do it. He's out there in Hollywood pitching. Ian's an old friend of mine. He's a director. He directed Rude Dude, the documentary on Steve Rude. And he's turned Helmet Head into a script, and he's looking for funding. But, him and a million other guys going from studio to studio. It helps that it's a great idea with a great story and a great hook. And we're just hoping that somebody will recognize that.
So what do you think it takes to kind of like break through? Does it take like a name or a connection, or do these like Hollywood executives actually can be wowed by a story?
I have no idea, obviously. But certainly luck is involved. I mean, being in the right place at the right time, being ready. It could be something like some executive is flying through Duluth and he buys a book at the airport and he reads it and he says, "Holy cow, this would make a great movie." And he constructs his people to cut a deal with the author. I mean, it could be just like that. But who knows?
So would you say that the favorite movie you've seen over the past year is Green Book?
One of them.
Okay. So I know you also do some music reviews. You were talking to me about that before. Have you always been interested in music as well? And do you do any of your own music?
Well, yes and no. I've been writing about music my whole life. I told you when I got out of college and I wrote up that article and I joined the Boston Phoenix staff, and eventually I became their music editor. And it was my job to go out night after night and listen to bands, talk to musicians, interview them, and report on the music, which I loved doing. I was a huge jazz fan at the time. Now I'm mostly interested in power pop, which is pop music with rhythms, exciting R&B based rhythms, hooks and bridges and soaring harmonies. The Beach Boys personify power pop. Parts of the Beatles do. Cheap Trick, Jellyfish, uh, the Gin Blossoms. They're all part of the power pop scene. And every year I say it, and every year it's true. This has been one of the greatest years for music in the history of music. But you'd never know it listening to Sirius Radio or the Billboard Awards or reading Rolling Stone or Spin, because they have no idea what's going on. They're not chasing music. They're chasing lifestyle and opinions. And the beautiful thing about power pop is it exists solely to give a kick to your soul.
So you're talking about how like the music industry is chasing lifestyle. Do you think that's kind of has spread to other industries? Like I know one of the big critiques that I hear about Marvel Comics is that they're trying to promote a lifestyle brand rather than selling comics.
The same accusation has been leveled at Harley Davidson for decades. But yeah, I don't know about, I have no clue as to Marvel's marketing strategy. I'm not that familiar with it. But as I said, at one time, their overwhelming mandate was to entertain, and that's what it should be. That's why it's called entertainment. We don't go to the comics to learn how to restructure our garden or something. Well, you can do it. I mean, we read comics to be entertained.
So I kind of want to push back on that a little bit, because I know a lot of I know Stan Lee, they used to use comics to provide instructional material for the military.
Absolutely. Comics have been proven to be a very effective educational tool, and they can be that too. But the comics that we're talking about, the superhero comics and horror and westerns and stuff, we read that for fun,
So I do want to talk about more about that lifestyle brand that you were talking about with the music. Do you think trying to be a lifestyle brand, even just specifically with music, you don't view that as a good strategy to promote interesting, entertaining, and good music?
Well, I didn't say that, but it's ironic you mentioned that, because I saw just the other day that Santana has his own clothing line now. But he's an institution, and they do that because he's so widely recognized that he's marketable in that way. If he were simply a genius guitarist whom nobody had ever heard of, he'd have to get by on his music alone. As for me, I look to the musician for music, not for political instruction or what clothes to wear. I go there to get that oral kick, to have my soul uplifted.
So when you're reading a comic, what are you reading a comic for besides entertainment? Well,
overall it's entertainment, but technically, does it draw me into the narrative? Do I believe the characters? Does the dialogue ring true? Is the story exciting? Does it make sense? And I have always said that the best ending for any story, any serious dramatic story, should come as both a complete surprise, but in retrospect seem perfectly rational. And the best example I can think of that is the ending to Planet of the Apes.
And that's the original Planet of the Apes?
Yeah.
Okay.
When they go up the beach and see the Statue of Liberty.
Right. Okay, yeah.
John.
Yes. I'm thinking here. So I wanted to kind of get back. I wanted to learn a little bit more. I know we talked about Shred Hustl a little bit, but I wanted to learn a little bit more about Tear the Roof Off the Sucker,
Right.
and exactly what is going on with that. I know that you are writing a story in Shred Hustl with that. Is Tear the Roof Off the Sucker? Is it an anthology, or is it?
Yeah. Here's the story. I was at Indie Pop several years ago, and a guy named Frank Cooper came up to me with an idea for a comic based on blaxploitation and disco films of the 70s. Superfly meets Saturday Night Fever. He had a bunch of characters he created, and it touched a chord. I stayed in touch with Frank, and we decided, what the hell, let's try to put something together. I took his character Dancing Queen, which is, you can imagine John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever, and Bad Mother to write. And Alan Brooks chose Butterfly, who was suggested by the late Rich Buckler. But in fact, Butterfly is a public domain character of a woman who was a chanteuse, a singer in the 40s and fought crime by night. I remember seeing a lot of those films at the Strand, in the Combat Zone, the Mac, Superfly, Hell Up in Harlem, Black Caesar. It wasn't until after I moved to Madison that Saturday Night Fever came out, and Xanadu, Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo. A lot of people were interested. Dennis Cowan was going to draw the story at one point. David Michelini was involved, but these guys didn't get down to it. And what happened is that I ended up working with Jeff Palmer. Jeff Palmer illustrated Dancing Queen. Jeff is a 5th degree black belt in Kenpo Karate, who has worked directly with Grandmaster Ed Parker, Senior Professor Wally J., and Rima Praces, Joe Lewis, and many more, accumulating 40 years of extensive martial arts experience. There's not any martial arts in this story, but there is in another project that Jeff and I have been working on. Ken Perry illustrated the Bad Mother story. Ken is a professional firefighter and artist, the co-creator of Wretched Things and Ghost Agents. He's a lieutenant working with a crew on Engine 4 in the south end of Fall River, Massachusetts. Frank Fosco illustrated the Butterfly story. Frank is well known. He's a longtime Marvel artist. He's now doing Mutant Ninja Turtles for Image. And R. Alan Brooks, who wrote the Butterfly story, hosts the popular Motherfucker in a Cape comics podcast, which focuses on marginalized members of the geek world. Alan writes educational children's comic books for Pop Culture Classroom, and also is the writer and creator of the Burning Metronome graphic novel. So all these stories are done. They're beautiful. They're colored. And now we're trying to raise some money to print them. As far as Frank Cooper, the guy who got this all started, Frank has disappeared off the face of the earth. He was a marginal character, living rooftop to rooftop. I think he was homeless probably, and now he's simply disappeared. But his idea lives on. We have this book to show for it. Okay.
All right. That makes a lot more sense. I was trying to figure out what was going on with it. But yeah, that does sound really interesting. And were most of these stories written recently, or were they written a while ago?
About 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay, so they're kind of recent. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's what? There's about 5 or 6 stories.
There are 3 stories,
stories.
3 8-page stories, 24 pages of story.
Okay. And for anyone listening, that's on Kickstarter. Here, I'll share it in the chat so people can see.
Do you have the cover? Here, I'll send you the cover.
What's that?
I'll send you the cover right now.
Okay,
on
yeah.
Facebook.
Okay. Here is the. Tear the roof off.
See it?
I think I spelled tear wrong. No, oh, I didn't. Okay. Yes, I do see it. Let's see here.
John Stadleman did the cover.
So let's see if I can do this here real quick. So we can share it and show it to people. So. All right, can you see that? That's the cover there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so there is the cover for Tear the Roof Off the Sucker, and you are writing. Does yours have a specific story name?
Yeah. Let me go back here. Where is it? I wrote Bad Mother and Dancing Queen. Dancing Queen.
Okay, so you have 2 stories then.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's 3 stories total.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that is on Kickstarter. You guys are looking to raise $3,500, and you got still about a month to go. So, but yeah, that looks really cool.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so let me see. All right, there we go. Back to me now. Okay. Yeah, so there. That was the cover for Tear the Roof Off the Sucker. Yeah, I'm surprised. You guys don't have any like there on the Kickstarter. There isn't any. And I know you probably aren't like you probably didn't. I mean, it looks like it was started by Kevin Burge, but he doesn't show any of the art or anything.
I'll see if I can get Kevin to post some of that because it's all brilliant. It's all brilliant.
Okay. Here, there's actually an update. Here you go. If I click it. Yeah.
If you're looking at the Kickstarter page, copy that and put it in the show, would you?
Yeah, I shared it already in the chat. Okay, here we go. I'm starting to see some stuff now. I got an error that said like only backers could see the one update. Okay, I can. All right, this is definitely okay. Here, let me share this with folks so they can see this because this actually really stuff looks really cool. Here, so this definitely has that 70s vibe going on here. Maybe even a little 60s, I guess.
I don't think that's it.
No, this is Mantastic, right?
Mantastic. I didn't do that story.
Well, it's part of the.
Well, I guess it's going to be a 32-page book.
Yeah, so it says Shred Hustl, Butterfly, and Mantastic in 3 tales. So this might be the one that you didn't do. Let's see if there's more. Oh yeah, see, only backers can post comments. I don't know. It's not loading. It says that there's.
John, I'll straighten this out with Kevin in the morning and send you what we got.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean that looks really cool though. And that's part of the okay, here we go. This one loaded now. Here, okay. Let me show this one because this is your script. This is from your story. All right, yeah, this is from your story because this.
Yeah, this has Ken Perry's work.
Yeah,
this is Jeff. This is Jeff Palmer. Jeff Palmer.
Yeah, Jeff Palmer. Yeah. Wow, this looks really cool. Look at that. What is this? Look at that car.
I know.
That's cool. The exhaust coming out there, and it's like slamming into a wall. So yeah, so this is one of your stories that you wrote. So this is Dancing Queen, right?
Yep.
And
that's Shred coming in the door there in the bottom.
Right here? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that's Shred Hustl. So now we know what he looks like.
Yeah.
And they're at like an Italian restaurant or something.
Pizzo of Sicily.
Cool. All right, so let's see if there's another one. Because we got that one. Okay, that's more fantastic. That's not you. This one's okay. That's the Mantastic cover, which is not you. Okay, here's Butterfly. And is this Dancing Queen?
No,
that's all Butterfly, right? Okay, so that's Butterfly too. There singing.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well. Okay. So that we got a little look at that. Let's get back to Offworld and we can look at some of that cool Offworlder artwork too that you guys have because we didn't really get a look at that earlier.
Yeah, I showed that.
Yeah. So can you see this?
That's the cover.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And this is an IndieGoGo exclusive cover. It's who's this by? Let's see.
Jordi Armengol.
Okay. So Jordi did this cover. So yeah, that's actually really cool. This is the Offworlder right here. The
James Gunn.
James Gunn with the does he wield the axe as a two-hand axe or is he wield it usually as a one-handed weapon?
Two hands.
Two hands. And then who is this guy here with the sword and on the horse?
Thorvald the Viking.
Thorvald the Viking. And okay, so this is kind of before he's been sucked into time. Okay.
Yeah, and there's a spaceship hovering above him. It's a little literary license because it doesn't actually hover above him, but you'll see it.
Okay, so that's not on the cover?
No. Okay. Well, that is the cover.
Right. But the spaceship isn't on the cover.
That is the spaceship on the cover. But
again, right.
It's just literary license combining elements that occur in the story.
Okay, so this it looks like a city building. Right here?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then that's interesting. And are the seagulls part of the spaceship?
No.
No. Okay. Is that okay? I don't know. I was just maybe the spaceship has some kind of like environmental like thing where the seagulls come with it. I don't know.
The birds make the journeys so much happier.
Yeah. Okay. And then here is another cover.
Yeah, that's just a variant.
Oh, okay. That's that's it says it's a pinup by Narwhal. Okay.
Yeah, but if you move down a page, then we're getting into Jordi's interior pages as they're colored.
Yeah.
That's the Library of Alexandria.
Yeah.
As it existed.
Yeah, I recognize that. Yep. That is iconic. It's a shame that it burned down. And okay, so so I know we talked a little bit about her name is Sarah. And obviously she's in Egypt. What's happening here? What are we looking at? Because it looks like there's a bunch
attacked by Muslims.
Yeah. Okay. So are they like the Berbers or just a random tribe?
I have to look at the script, but I did research it. It's just like I wrote this over a year ago, and I it's not that I forget what I wrote. It's just that I forgot what I wrote. But it is well researched. It's based on the historical enemy at the time, which was 600 AD, and this big force was trying to take over Alexandria. And they were responsible for the burning of the library, and Sarah had to flee for her life. And of course, her no good brother was involved with the enemy because in all these Egyptian dynasties, all the siblings hated each other, and they're all competing for the throne.
I mean, I don't think that was just isolated to Egypt. I think that happened quite a bit everywhere.
Yeah.
Probably still happens. Okay, yeah, but I mean, Jordy's artwork is absolutely phenomenal. And I wanted to go back to that, and I know I've talked to Chuck about kind of him doing scripts too. It sounds like you guys do write these scripts and then send them off to your artists, and the artists kind of just work on them for quite a bit. How often, after you send a script to an artist, how long does it, or let me just restate what I'm trying to ask here. After you've written a script, how long does it usually take before the comic comes to fruition?
Well, it depends. If you're working for a big company like Marvel, we were producing comics on a monthly basis. With something like Offworlder, which Jordy does in his spare time, has taken several months, and yet he has completed the first script in its entirety. And if you scroll down there to the black and white pages, you'll see that his art is so phenomenal that we could just print this as black and white, and it would still be one of the greatest comics ever done.
Yeah, I am like just amazed by the artwork. So I do have some questions here. Who is this other Scottish guy? Looks like there's two Scotsmen.
Oh, he does have his cohorts and lieutenants.
Okay, so they were able to travel with him then?
No, it's just James.
Okay. All right. Don't want to get into spoilers, huh?
No, I'll send you the script.
Oh. Okay, so this, yeah, here we go. These are some awesome. See, this is great here because you can see firing the bow. You know that he's going. You can it shows you where to go next, and it's right into the guy's back. Yeah, that's really good. Is this the same fight here?
Yep.
Okay. These are the same characters?
Well, that's James on the left and Thorvald on the right.
Okay. This is not Thorvald. This is a different guy. Yeah, Thorvald's back there. I see him. This is Thorvald back here. Okay. So this is, okay. These two pages are not in, these are not connected. This one here with Sarah.
Well, there's a scene change there. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And it would be made clear by the captions of dialogue.
Right.
I'm going to have to fade out here shortly, John.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, there's definitely some adult or mature scenes going on here too. But yeah, so Offworlder is on IndieGoGo. That's what you're looking at right now. Offworlder, the Protectors of Sarah, 48 pages. This is part 1 of 2. It's written by Mike Barron. All right, well, Mike, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. And can't wait to talk to you again soon for part 2 of Offworlder, and maybe we'll talk to you more about Florida Man when you get that going.
Thank you, John.
All right, have a great night, Mike.